Hey guys, in this video I want to show you how you can use Google Sheets to safely store your data. In this case I have 3 different clients as an example, and I will show you how you can store all of their data in one place and then securely distribute their data. For example, client 1 will be only receiving the data for client 1, then the client 2 gets their own data, and so on. So first off, why would you even do this? Why would you not just add the client's data in their individual workbooks? In this case, I'm using an example of an example data for a campaign performance recap that you would do schedually, for example, every month, every quarter, etc. And these are example data points that we're going to be using in this video. So the question is, why would you not just simply add this data to the respective client's workbook? You could do this, but imagine for every client you'd have to create a Google form or some other kind of form that would populate data at these rows. And if you have 10 clients, you can imagine that's adding 10 forms. But if you have 100 clients, that becomes a very large chunk of work to do. So in my opinion, that's very inefficient approach. Now, the other approach, the other way I chose is to store everything in one place in a database. So in this case, we're going to be using only one Google form that will add all clients' data in here. And then I'm going to be using Google Apps Script to distribute this data to each client's workbook. So for example, in this database, you can see that I have 3 records for client 1. And in here for client 1, actually, I need to approve them first because there is a control for that too. And if I run my script here, it's going to populate this data for these 3 rows to client 1 spreadsheet. Now we have data for client 2, which is also in here, and data for client 3, because running the script basically just populates all the client's data. Now again, I want to emphasize that this specific approach where you have data flowing from your database to the client workbook is extremely safe, because the other way would be to use import range and query to basically access this database, and then use a filter to display the necessary data. So you would then use query and where clause to only see the data for client 1. In here you would see data for client 2, etc. And you could do this with, if this workbook has edit access and client can change the formula, then they could potentially just remove the where clause and see the data for all of your clients, which is definitely a bad thing. It would disclose private data and could harm your business. You could give the view access to the client, and that would prevent this, but you need to keep in mind that there is human factor. People make mistakes, people forget things, people may not be attentive, they may not read the SOP well, and they can accidentally give added access to the client, which will again potentially open them access to all of your data, all the data in your database. So it's very risky, and this approach where data flows from the database to client workbook is very safe, because your client has no way to access this database. They don't even know the ID. They don't ever get to access this. It's very safe. It's very secure. So this is why this approach is very valuable in my opinion. So the way it works is you have you have the settings page where you specify the order number or the ID of your client in column A, and in column B you specify the spreadsheet ID of your client, right? So for example, this is client 2 and this is their ID, and you can see it's here. So now your VA or whoever, maybe you do it yourself, will be performing the recaps, will be submitting a Google form, and basically adding all these records to the master database. Now, then there's going to be a scheduled script that will be running maybe once a few hours or once a day, depending on how fresh you need the data to be. And it's going to be distributing this data accordingly. So client one is getting the data for themselves, for their data. Then client two will get only their data, and so on, right? There is no situation where client one can somehow see the data for any other client. Then there is a additional helping function, that script that will run on the background, and it will be trimming the order numbers in case your VA accidentally adds a space somewhere while submitting the form, which they often do. This trim function will basically run, again, be scheduled to run and be scheduled to clear these, so that these records appear on the client's workbook. So let me show you an example. This one with the queue, if I add a space and I rerun my data push function, that's client 3, and you can see it's gone from client 3. Even though it's on the database, it doesn't really find this row because there is a space. Now, if we clear up this, which again is going to be running automatically, and we then run this function, we're going to see the third record for client 3. You see it's now working perfect. So again, the setup, the flow is going to be the following. Somebody VA or you is submitting the Google form to add records to here. Also, when you add a new client, you'll need to specify their ID and the target, the client ID and the ID of the target spreadsheet you want data to be pushed into. And then at that point, all of their records will be displayed here, which is a very convenient way to see all of their performance history, or there could be any other kind of records you're making, maybe it's some kind of changes that you are tracking or anything else. So this is how things work. And if you want to have this whole kind of system for yourself, just let me know in the comments. I will send you the link to this workbook, to these three, and to the scripts that you need to have set up to make it all happen.